and take a look at this. All right, there's no volume, okay? But she's coming off, boom, get the off-ball screen. A little fake, come off the DHO, banging that thing. With the kiss to the crowd. Come on, man. Look, I love that she's working on this. Now, honestly, I think it's in her back.
Caitlin Clark is secretly transforming into something the WNBA has never seen before, and the practice footage that just leaked proves she's about to break basketball all over again. While everyone's debating whether she should keep the ball in her hands, she's in the gym perfecting the exact skill set that made one player the most dangerous offensive weapon in basketball history. And if you think you know what her second season is going to look like, you're about to be completely wrong.
Yeah, he can get it off the dribble. He can get it off the off-ball screens. Like, just having that diversity within her game. Like, I love it. I love it, fam. And I remember speaking with Mick about how I feel like the energy might be reserved a little bit more with her not having to create her own shot a lot. Now, he had a different opinion about it. He was saying it might take more energy to run around like she's doing. Now, it could be esoteric a little bit because, you know, having the experience of dribbling around myself, and I know he played ball as well. It's just something about dribbling a lot when you're trying to get your own shot.
Watch that footwork. Coming off the screen, the fake, then catching the handoff and finishing with that buttersoft touch. That's not just some random off-season training clip. That's Caitlin Clark deliberately evolving her game in a direction most fans haven't been asking for. And here's what's wild about this footage. She's not working on her handles or her pull-up three. She's grinding on off-ball movement, screening actions, catch-and-shoot situations. The exact skill set that turned Steph Curry from a great shooter into the most unstoppable offensive force basketball has ever seen. But here's where it gets controversial. Half the basketball world thinks this is genius. The other half thinks it's a complete waste of her talents. And both sides are about to go to war over what Clark should become in year 2.
We'll reserve a little bit more energy getting around screens, allowing the team actually to help you get open instead of you creating your own shot all the time and using all your energy to go tween, spin, Euro stepping, you know, those kind of things. So yeah, man, I like to see this. Okay, now I know a lot of people been giving me all kind of smoke. Hey, Izzy, she need to have the ball 24/7, 48 minutes. I know they play 10 minutes a quarter, 40 minutes.
The comparison everyone's dancing around is Steph Curry, and I'm not talking about the obvious stuff, the deep range, the handles, the ability to pull up from anywhere. I'm talking about the complete offensive package that makes defenses lose their minds. Sure, Curry can create shots with the ball in his hands, but what makes him truly devastating is his ability to destroy defenses without ever touching the basketball, running defenders through screens like they're traffic cones, relocating for open looks that appear out of nowhere, creating gravity that opens up the entire floor for his teammates. And here's the thing about Clark developing this skill. It's not just about adding a new weapon to her arsenal. It's about survival. Playing a full WNBA season while being the primary ball handler on every single possession is absolutely exhausting. We saw what happened to Clark by the playoffs last year. The fatigue was written all over her face. Her shooting percentages dropped off a cliff. And then came the injury that ended her season early and crushed Indiana's championship dreams.
I just love to see it. I love to see it, and I think it'll give her more wide open shots. You know, especially like, let's say one of those moments where she might be struggling, right? She might be struggling from the three. Sometimes you just need to see one go down and you need a really good look at the rim. That could help her get that fire started. Boom, now she's banging them, right? Banging them from way out. So, yeah, I love to see it, man. I love to see it. Y'all make sure y'all.
But listen to the debate that's raging right now in basketball circles. Ball in her hands 24/7 versus incorporating off-ball movement. And here's what's crazy. Both sides have legitimate points backed by actual evidence from last season. When Clark had the ball, the Fever's offensive rating was elite. Her assist-to-turnover ratio was exceptional for a rookie. Her ability to create shots for teammates completely transformed Indiana's offensive identity from unwatchable to must-see television. So the ball-dominant crowd isn't wrong. Good things happen when Caitlin Clark controls the offense. The numbers prove it beyond any doubt. But here's what those same numbers also prove, and this is where it gets concerning. By game 35 of the season, her three-point percentage had dropped 4 full points from her season average. Her minutes were being managed more carefully by the coaching staff, and the training staff was constantly monitoring her workload like she was a piece of equipment about to break down. That's not sustainable for a player the franchise is building around for the next decade.
You know, I think more than anything, it just teaches you how to be a really great teammate and a really good leader, and understanding what your teammates go through. Like, obviously, I'm going to have teammates that have been through injuries and are going to continue to go through injuries, and always leaning on them and being there for them. And, you know, if I have a teammate hurt going forward, like, I'm always going to be the one that texts them and checks on them. And then, you know, just pouring into your teammates. You can do that whether you play or you don't play, and that was kind of my main focus.
Now look at those screens in the practice footage again, and this is where the Indiana Fever coaching staff better be paying close attention. Because Clark already has this skill in her bag. The footwork is textbook perfect. The shooting mechanics off the catch are proven at the highest level. The court awareness to find gaps in the defense exists in spades. So what's been missing? The infrastructure around her. Screen quality, that's the real issue that nobody wants to talk about. Last season, the Fever's screening was inconsistent at best, and I'm being generous with that description. Defenders could fight over screens easily because they were weak and poorly angled. The timing was completely off. The angles weren't creating clean separation. And when Clark tried to use off-ball actions, she wasn't getting the quality looks that make it worth the energy expenditure. So she went back to creating everything herself, because at least that was reliable. But reliable doesn't win championships when you're running your best player into the ground.
Started that she was back to full strength.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like when I touched the basketball to start warming up before the practice even started, that's probably when I felt pretty comfortable. But, I mean, I've worked so hard. Like, I haven't taken a break since, you know, honestly, since the beginning of the WNBA season, with just all my rehab and getting back to where I wanted to be, and then getting even better. So that's been kind of my focus. And, you know, this has kind of been my next thing that I've been working for since our season ended.
I mean, honestly, I'm just glad that she's better.
And there's something else in these interviews that reveals Clark's mindset shift. The injury acknowledgement, the groin injury that she worked through during the playoffs before it eventually forced her to shut down and miss the finals. Listen to how she frames it publicly, learning to be a better teammate, understanding what injured players go through, supporting teammates during their recovery process. That's the media-friendly answer. But here's the private reality that every elite athlete knows but rarely admits. Injuries change you. They make you think differently about workload management, about long-term career planning, about whether grinding yourself into dust during the regular season is worth it if you're not healthy when the games actually matter. Clark played through that injury for weeks, watching her efficiency decline, feeling her body break down before it finally forced her out of the biggest games of her career. She's not going to forget that lesson, and neither should the Fever.
100% Caitlin, 100% Kelsey, 100% Aaliyah Boston fam. Just imagine if Caitlin was healthy last year. Just imagine. Yo, we see how far the Fever went without her. Man, come on, man. They're getting over that hump. They're getting to the championship. I think they're winning. I think they're winning it all if Caitlin was there, fam. Oh, my goodness. I mean, fam, they were dominating with such a circus of a roster, fam. Like
Team USA camp, full strength, back to touching the basketball in competitive situations, and notice what she emphasizes in every interview. The rehab work never stopped. From the moment her WNBA season ended through the entire recovery process, she's been training. Not resting, not taking a mental break, not going on vacation. Training with purpose towards specific goals. That's the mindset that separates elite players from generational talents. But it's also the mindset that can break down bodies if the workload isn't managed intelligently. So this off-ball development isn't just about adding a cool new dimension to her game. It's about Clark and the Fever's coaching staff finally recognizing that playing her 40 minutes a game as a full-time point guard creates an injury risk they literally cannot afford. Not with a championship window that's just starting to crack open. So here's what this all means for the Fever's championship aspirations, and let's be brutally honest about where they were last season. They made the playoffs as a young team that overachieved expectations by a mile. They pushed the Connecticut Sun to the absolute brink before Clark's injury ended their Cinderella run. They proved the core is legitimate, Mitchell's athleticism, Boston's versatility, Clark's generational talent. That's a foundation you can build a dynasty around. But making that jump from playoff team to championship contender requires evolution. Not just from the players, but from the entire system. And this is where the off-ball development becomes absolutely crucial. Because championship teams don't rely on one player to create every single possession. They have multiple actions, multiple options, multiple ways to generate quality looks that keep defenses guessing. Look at what happened in those playoff games against Connecticut and you'll see exactly why this matters. The Sun could load up on Clark because they knew every possession ran through her. They could be physical at the point of attack. They could trap the pick and roll aggressively. They could force the ball out of her hands and make role players beat them. And it worked. Not because Clark isn't talented enough, she's the most talented rookie the league has ever seen. But because the Fever didn't have enough variety in how they generated offense. They were predictable, and predictable gets you sent home in the playoffs. Now imagine this scenario instead. Clark comes off a screen on the weak side. The defense has to account for her shooting threat from anywhere on the court. That creates a driving lane for Mitchell, or it opens up a post entry to Boston, or it gives them a numbers advantage in transition. Suddenly, you're not asking Clark to break down the defense on every possession. You're using her gravity to create advantages for everyone else. That's the Steph Curry blueprint, and here's why it's so devastating. It's not about making Clark less important, it's about making her impact more efficient and more sustainable over 40 games plus playoffs. Curry doesn't score less because he moves off the ball. He scores more efficiently because defenses can't load up on him the same way they used to. They have to respect him as a threat at all times, whether he has the ball or not. Whether he's bringing it up the court or spotting up in the corner or coming off a screen. That constant threat level is what breaks defenses. But here's where the Fever have to hold up their end of the bargain, and this is non-negotiable. The screening has to improve dramatically, and I'm not talking about marginal improvement. I'm talking about making it a point of emphasis in training camp, drilling proper screen angles until they're automatic, holding players accountable when they set weak screens that don't create separation. Because if Clark is running around screens and not getting open looks, she's just wasting energy. That's actually worse than having the ball in her hands. The off-ball movement only works if the infrastructure supports it at an elite level. Golden State didn't just tell Curry to run around and hope for the best. They built an entire offensive system designed to maximize his off-ball impact. Every screen was set with purpose. Every cut was timed perfectly. Every pass was delivered on target. The Fever need that same level of commitment, or this evolution is doomed before it starts. And then there's the roster construction question that keeps me up at night. Do they have enough secondary playmakers to run the offense when Clark is moving off the ball? Mitchell has shown flashes of brilliance, but can she consistently make the right read when the defense rotates? Can she deliver the pass to Clark on time and on target when the window is only open for half a second? Those are the details that separate good offenses from elite ones and elite offenses from championship ones. The shoes in that practice footage, brand new, specifically designed for cutting and lateral movement. The visible muscle development in her shoulders and legs. The intensity of every single rep. These aren't just off-season workout videos for social media content. This is Clark making a statement about how seriously she's taking year 2. She's not satisfied with Rookie of the Year and a playoff appearance. She's studying what it takes to win championships, and she's identified off-ball excellence as a crucial piece of that puzzle. So when people push back and say keep the ball in her hands, they're not necessarily wrong about her talent. But they're thinking about maximizing this season instead of building a dynasty that lasts a decade. Clark with the ball is devastating. We've already seen that movie. Clark who can destroy you with or without the ball? That's unstoppable. That's the difference between being a great player and being a generational talent who wins multiple championships and changes the sport forever. The question isn't whether Clark can develop this skill. The practice footage proves she already has. The question is whether the Fever's coaching staff and roster construction are ready to build the system that makes it work at the championship level. Because if they commit to this evolution, the same way Golden State committed to maximizing Curry's off-ball brilliance, then the rest of the WNBA better be very, very worried. This isn't just about one player getting better. This is about a franchise potentially unlocking a cheat code that breaks competitive balance. So here's what I need to know from you. Do you trust the Indiana Fever to build the infrastructure that makes this work? Or are you worried they're going to waste Clark's off-ball development with the same inconsistent screening and poor roster construction we saw last year? This evolution could turn them into a dynasty, or it could be a complete waste of the most talented player in WNBA history. Drop your take in the comments, because this is going to define their entire championship window. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening behind the scenes, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, And hit the notification bell because Clark's transformation is just getting started, and you don't want to miss what happens next. But wait, because there's another layer to this story that nobody's talking about, and it involves the business side of basketball that could completely change how we evaluate Clark's strategic evolution. The WNBA is exploding in popularity right now, and Clark is the primary driver of that growth. Television ratings when she plays versus when she doesn't aren't even close. Merchandise sales, ticket prices, social media engagement, everything revolves around her gravitational pull as a superstar. And here's where it gets complicated. If Clark becomes more efficient by moving off the ball, if she's getting easier looks and conserving energy, does that actually hurt the league's marketability? Because let's be honest about what casual fans want to see. They want to see Clark dribble between her legs at half court, pull up from 30 feet, and drain shots that make no logical sense. They want the ball in her hands, creating magic on every possession. The off-ball evolution might be better basketball, but is it better entertainment? This is the tension that every superstar faces when they try to optimize their game for winning versus playing the style that made them famous. Kobe Bryant dealt with this exact dilemma throughout his career. The fadeaway jumpers over double teams weren't the most efficient shots, but they were the shots that sold jerseys and filled arenas. When he started moving the ball more and taking better shots within the offense, some fans actually complained that he was becoming boring. Clark could face the same criticism if she starts getting too many easy baskets off screens instead of creating impossible shots out of thin air. But here's what those critics are missing, and this is where the basketball IQ conversation becomes crucial. The best entertainment in sports isn't individual brilliance in isolation. It's individual brilliance that elevates everyone around it and leads to winning at the highest level. Michael Jordan's greatest moments weren't his scoring titles. They were the championships where his individual excellence made his teammates better and created a dynasty that transcended basketball. Clark has the opportunity to do something even more impactful than being a great individual player. She can be the catalyst that transforms the entire WNBA into must-watch television by showing what championship basketball looks like when you have a generational talent who's also a complete team player. And the financial implications of that evolution are staggering. Right now, Clark draws viewers because she's appointment television as an individual performer. But imagine if the Indiana Fever become appointment television as a team. Imagine if every game feels like a potential championship preview because they've built an offense so dynamic and entertaining that fans tune in to watch the system, not just the star. That's sustainable growth for the league that doesn't depend entirely on one player's health and longevity. That's the difference between a popularity spike and a fundamental shift in how America views women's basketball. But achieving that requires Clark to make some short-term sacrifices in individual statistics and highlight real moments for long-term gains in team success and legacy building. And let's talk about the elephant in the room that's been lurking in every conversation about Clark's development: the pressure from outside expectations that could derail this entire evolution. Social media metrics, ESPN highlights, individual awards, scoring averages. All of these external measures of success reward the ball-dominant approach that might not be optimal for winning championships. Clark is going to face criticism from fans who don't understand why she's not shooting 30 times per game. She's going to hear questions about whether she's being aggressive enough when she passes up contested threes to hit open teammates. The noise is going to be constant and loud and completely focused on the wrong metrics. This is where mental toughness becomes just as important as physical development. Because the players who successfully make this transition, Curry, LeBron James in his later Miami years, Tim Duncan throughout his entire career, they all had to develop the mental strength to ignore criticism from people who valued individual statistics over championship rings. Clark has already shown she can handle pressure at an elite level. The college national championship games, the WNBA rookie season media circus, the constant comparisons to legends of the sport. She's navigated all of that with remarkable poise for someone who's barely old enough to rent a car. But this is different pressure. This is the pressure that comes from people who claim to be supporting you while actually undermining your development by demanding you play a style that limits your team's ceiling. The most dangerous critics aren't the obvious haters. They're the well-meaning fans who think they're protecting Clark's individual legacy while actually encouraging habits that could prevent her from reaching her full potential as a championship player. And here's what makes this situation even more complex. Some of those voices are going to come from former players and media personalities who built their own careers on individual excellence rather than team success. They're going to project their own experiences onto Clark's situation without recognizing that the landscape of professional basketball has evolved dramatically in the past decade. The analytics revolution has fundamentally changed how championship teams are built. The most successful franchises now optimize for efficiency, ball movement, and creating the highest percentage looks possible rather than relying on individual heroics. Clark's off-ball development isn't just about adapting to modern basketball, it's about staying ahead of where the sport is heading. Teams that don't embrace these concepts are going to get left behind, and players who can't adapt are going to find themselves on the wrong side of history. But there's another factor that could accelerate or derail this entire process, and it's something the Indiana Fever front office needs to address immediately: the supporting cast development timeline. Boston, Mitchell, and the rest of the core players need to improve at the same rate Clark is evolving, or the whole system breaks down. If Clark is running perfect routes off screens but her teammates can't deliver the pass on time, the evolution fails. If she's creating space for others but they can't convert the open looks, the coaching staff will abandon the system and go back to Clark creating everything herself. This is why championship windows in professional sports are so fragile and why timing is absolutely everything. The Golden State Warriors didn't just have Curry develop off-ball excellence in isolation. They had Klay Thompson become one of the greatest catch-and-shoot players in history at the exact same time. They had Draymond Green develop into an elite playmaker who could run the offense when Curry was moving without the ball. They had role players who understood their assignments and executed them at a championship level. The Fever need that same collective development, and they need it to happen simultaneously with Clark's evolution. Any lag time between Clark's improvement and her teammates' improvement creates a gap where the system doesn't work optimally, and gaps like that can waste entire seasons in a league where championship windows are measured in years, not decades. So when we're evaluating whether this off-ball development is going to work, we can't just look at Clark's individual progress. We have to examine whether the entire organization is committed to evolving at the same pace. The practice facility investments, the coaching staff additions, the player development resources, the analytics department, all of these infrastructure pieces have to be upgraded simultaneously for this evolution to reach its full potential. And here's where the Indiana Fever's front office decision-making becomes absolutely critical. They can't half-commit to this process. They can't give Clark new skills while surrounding her with the same supporting cast and the same coaching philosophy that limited their ceiling last season. This has to be a complete organizational transformation that touches every aspect of how they approach basketball. The scouting department needs to identify players who excel in the specific skills that complement Clark's off-ball development. The coaching staff needs to implement systems that maximize the impact of her gravity when she's moving without the basketball. The training staff needs to understand the physical demands of constant off-ball movement and prepare Clark's body accordingly. Most importantly, the front office needs to communicate this vision clearly to everyone in the organization, so that every decision, from roster construction to practice planning, supports the same long-term goal. Because if they execute this properly, if they build the infrastructure and develop the supporting cast and commit fully to this evolution, the Indiana Fever don't just become championship contenders. They become the blueprint that every other WNBA franchise tries to copy for the next decade. They become the team that figured out how to maximize a generational talent while building a sustainable winning culture around her. But if they execute it poorly, if they give Clark new skills without the supporting system to make them effective, they waste the most important developmental period of her career and potentially limit her legacy forever. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the margin for error couldn't be smaller. This isn't just about whether Caitlin Clark becomes a better player. This is about whether the Indiana Fever become a dynasty or remain a team that wasted the greatest talent in WNBA history. The next 6 months of preparation will determine which story gets written, and every basketball fan should be paying attention, because we're witnessing the foundation being laid for what could be the most dominant era in women's basketball history.